Hi there, welcome. This is Jordan Rich. It's my honor, pleasure, and real joy to hang out with Ken Gloss, the proprietor of the Brattle Bookshop in Boston on West Street, downtown as you can get, and it's a historic, wonderful spot. You can lose yourself in there. You'll eventually get found, but you lose yourself in there and have a great time. Ken, here's a question that you wanted us to raise. Literally unsure where you're going to go with this, but it's an interesting question. Of all the types of things you have in the store, which, I mean, it's a cornucopia of riches, what are the books that are hardest to move? What are the books that seem to not sell?
Not so much that I was coming at it from that direction. I was coming at this, what are the books that are hardest to get rid of?
To
And
get rid of?
well,
Okay.
get rid of. And this is something that I've had experience with. That when you have a library, when you have a personal collection, what are some of the things that are hardest to dispose of, to get rid of? What do you do with them? I have a book here, and this is really going to set us off in a strange angle.
That's okay.
But it's a book from the 1850s, and it's called a voice to the married. And on the front end paper of it is, this certifies that on the 8th day of October in the year of our Lord 1851, Mr. David so-and-so married so-and-so, and I performed the ceremony in New Hampshire on June 11th. When you think about that, people love books that have inscriptions like that in them. There are people who collect them because they have so much emotion and meaning to them, one person giving it to another. But then you stop and think about it. Okay, this book is sitting here. I have no idea who those people are. But at one point, this book had to have meant a tremendous amount to that couple. Now, the interesting thing about it is, I have no idea how I got it. I'm actually thinking of getting in touch with the town that this was out of in New Hampshire and seeing if maybe the museum there would like it. But who in the family got rid of that? How did they let it go? When a lot of times when people come in and they have books that are personal to them, you go through a library, and 90% of it's easy. It's okay, these go. But when I was going through my father's books, and he had died, he had about 40, maybe 2 or 3 shelves of books inscribed to him. Most of the people, I had no idea who they were. I knew they obviously meant something to my father because they were personally inscribed to him. But what do you do with them? It's not like I wanted to bring them in the store, put them on the shelf, price them $10, and someone saying, these books were inscribed to your father. Why are you selling them?
So wait a minute. What you're saying is the inscription, the personalization can be, in some cases, when you're trying to sort of sell off a book, it can be a detriment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not that other people will buy it. It's like, do you want to have that book saying to them, I don't care about this. Yeah, someone gave it to my father. It meant something to my father. He kept it. He cherished it. And do you throw it away? Do you put it on the shelf to sell it and have people look at it and say, oh, you're selling the things that meant a lot to your father and trying to make money off of them? It's actually an interesting thing happens. People, a lot of times when you have books signed by someone famous, maybe someone famous who doesn't sign a lot of stuff, let's say a J.D. Salinger, who was notorious for not signing things. If you have a book that's signed to you by J.D. Salinger personally, it may be whatever, and let's say even your name is recognizable because that's why J.D. Salinger was signing it to you. Well, J.D. Salinger books went up in value tremendously. They leveled off a little now, but they might be, just for a common book, $5,000, $10,000, for a good book, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000. But, and that was when he was still alive. Do you, while he's still alive, You might want the $20 or $30,000, but you put it up for sale where J.D. Salinger will see that you were selling the book he inscribed to you.
Yeah.
What do you
Well,
do with it? Or do you wait until after he dies so that he won't know that you were selling his book? The problem there is actually after someone like that dies, sometimes a fair number of them come on the market because everybody was afraid to sell them when he was alive because they didn't want anyone to think that attachment that they were just getting rid of them. There's a story that one time an author was in a bookstore in Paris, an English bookstore, and he was looking, and he just for fun looked at a few of his books. They were on the shelves in a used bookstore, and he opened one up, and it was inscribed by him to a friend of his.
oh no, to an
And
actual friend he
well,
knew.
that's exactly. So
Okay.
what he did is he bought the book, and he sent it back to the person. He said, "I am sure someone must have borrowed this book to you from you and not returned it, and I'm sending it back to make sure that you get it." You know,
You know,
yes,
it,
yeah, of course you sold it.
again, I wasn't sure where you were going with this topic, but now I get you. It's actually true that in the sports autograph world, a lot of professional athletes and professional coaches now do not like to sign their autographs for the simple reason is there are professional, quote unquote, professional people who are there to buy and then resell. They're not getting one for their kids. They're getting one to take down the street and sell at a profit. So,
Well, exactly. Well,
yeah,
that's a whole other. But Jordan, I'm sure over the years of your career, you've interviewed many authors,
I
and I'm
have.
sure a lot of them have inscribed books to you.
Yes.
If you called me in, and let's say you have a wall of these books, do you want them to go out in my shop where everybody can look and said this was inscribed to Jordan Rich by? So
No,
what do you do with the book? In my case, a lot of them were inscribed to my father. They weren't people that meant anything to me. They weren't anything that I wanted my father's books to be sold in the store. They weren't the type of thing that any library would care about getting books from these authors. It was like I still have some of them. My father died 35 years ago. What
can
do
I
I do with them?
can I tell you what I did with my literally hundreds of signed books? Because
Sure.
that was a problem that I faced when I had to downsize, like everybody else. And just coincidentally, my late father-in-law was living in an assisted living for the aged, and when he passed away, I thought to myself, they have a small library. What if I were to donate? And I must have donated 300 or 400 books to their library, and they graciously accepted these books, and I felt good because I didn't sell them, and they were going to be read by just people in the place, and they dedicated the library to my late father-in-law. So, but that's not everybody has that opportunity.
Well, yeah, and you don't want to feel like you're insulting the person who gave it
No,
to you
no, no,
by,
no. Of course not.
giving it up. So, what I found over the years that these are some of the hottest type of books to get rid of because they have enough emotional attachment to who they were given to, who they were signed to. They meant a lot. On the other hand, the next generation or so on might not be as interested, or when you're downsizing, you don't want to insult somebody by saying, what do I let your book go. On the other hand, a lot of libraries and so on, it's just a book to somebody else. So I found over the years, those are the books, the absolute hottest to get rid of. Now, uh, I have books that have been signed to me, and they mean a lot to me. What I definitely plan on doing is doing nothing with them and let my kids figure it out. Eventually, I figure, hey, I've done enough for them. I'll leave this one on them. But
Exactly.
it's also too that a lot of times another place where this comes up. And, again, if the books really, really are valuable, in other words, if Ernest Hemingway had signed one of his first books to my father and it was worth $20,000, $30,000, I might say, look, at the time when my kids were going to college, if this can be my father giving them a year of college education, I can justify that to myself. And Ernest Hemingway is not going to see that happen. Maybe somebody would. My father didn't have a book signed by Ernest Hemingway, by the way, to him. But, I can see that justification when it gets up high enough that it really does, the money really means something. But it's those things that are sort of in the middle. And one of the interesting stories about also how do you get rid of this type of book? I did an appraisal in a large old church in Boston, a well over 100-year-old church. And I spent a day there. And they had some nice books. They just accumulated. They took me down the basement. They had some more nice books. And then in a corner, they had a closet, or actually a small room. Opened the door, the priest opened it, floor to ceiling, top to bottom, front to back, thousands of old Bibles. And I'm looking at this, and I look at the priest. I go, well, what is this? Well, he goes, what happens when a parishioner dies and they have a Bible and the family doesn't necessarily want the Bible, but they feel it's, some people feel you can't throw away a book.
Yeah.
They feel it's sacrilegious to throw away a Bible. Obviously, in the Jewish religion, you bury it and there's a whole ceremony that goes with it. But let's say and he says, what do people do when they have it and they don't know what to do with it? They come and they present it to the church. Mm. And he says, what do? We don't want to offend anybody.
Of course.
He goes, we very graciously accept it. And then we go downstairs, open the door, put it in with the rest of them. And he goes, and we can't drive a dumpster up to the back of the church and fill it full of Bibles. That would just be terrible. So that's another one of those things. What do you do? How do you, the books, and what it really is, it's not that the book itself is that hard. It's the sentiment. It's the knowledge. Or it's the fear that somebody's going to go, it's like regifting something and someone knows that you've regifted, the worry that you're going to offend somebody. But I found over the years that those type of books that on one hand, when they're 100, 200 years old and the people who are involved have absolutely no connection anymore, it can be fascinating to see that Aunt so-and-so gave a book to her niece or nephew, and the sentiments can be wonderful and people love those. On the other hand, if everybody's still alive, or most of the people are still alive, then it's a really, really tricky situation. And like I say, I find those the hardest books to get rid of, which I have a box full in my basement that I don't know what to do with. I mean, they're my father's books.
Like you say all the time, no one feels comfortable in our world in throwing away a book, literally throwing it away.
No.
So it's a conundrum. You raised a great issue, and I never thought of it in that term. I really did.
Well, maybe my kids will call you up someday, and say, "What do I do with these?" But again, what I've done is completely and totally avoid the issue, put them in the basement, and leave it to my kids. And then they'll have it down there, and they'll be able to get rid of my father's books. Maybe they'll keep one or two of their grandfather's books, but then they'll have my books that people have inscribed to me. And my grandchildren will have to deal with those.
Yeah, just keep passing it on. Leave it to the next generation. Ken, as always, this is so much fun conversing about something that you and I both love. You are into it. You know it like the back of your hand. And what a great, vast wealth of experience you bring to it. Thank you so much, as always.
In a few months after this all is out and all of the ones we've done recently, if anybody's driving an old Corvette and they open the hood and they find a box of books inscribed in there, you'll know where they came from.